I first interviewed my next guest in 1991. Before then, he was best known as a popular BBC sports presenter, but by the time he'd appeared on Wogan, his life had taken a dramatic change. Have a look at this. So evil has been in control of the planet for 12,000 years?
It has been the dominating force. Evil's not the right word, it is imbalance. But it has been increasingly in control. As I repeat, survey the world, ladies and gentlemen. Is the force of love in control of this world, guiding this planet at this time? Of course not. The negativity, the thoughts that I'm talking about that are very destructive, are pouring out of this planet
let me
every
interrupt
day.
You. Was it a great shock for you to discover this at 38?
Well, I think the word is gobsmacked. But again.
I'm delighted that he's agreed to come back. David Icke. So that interview at the time, it changed everything for you, didn't it?
Well, it changed everything in the sense of I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at by most of the people. And what that does is it reveals to you about how easy it is for the few to control the many.
David Icke there in 2006, reflecting on his baptism of fire interview 15 years earlier with Terry Wogan. If ever there was a way to hit the headlines, David Icke did it in 1991 with his message of the need for humanity to change. It was not a message that the world was ready to hear at that time. Over 18 million viewers tuned in that evening. Most of them laughed. There is much said about David Icke, and if some of it is true, then there are certainly aspects of his beliefs and his messages that I cannot align with. However, in 2005, shortly after my own spiritual awakening started, I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing David Icke in his home in the Isle of Wight. What I'm about to show you is part of that interview. This is something that's never been seen anywhere before, and in fact I only came across it by chance recently. This is not an angry David Icke that we see so often in interviews when he's frustrated at trying to put his point across. I spoke to him about his spirituality and how he, even at that time, was wanting to work with people to help them see the self-imposed prison in which they exist. Here then is David Icke in 2005 with basically a very timeless message.
I find, to be honest, that spirituality is too often used as a means of escape instead of a means of change. We have to find our own truth and not take someone else's off the peg. So anyway, when people say to me, what do you think I should do? The only one that knows what they should do is them. It's within them. All I'm trying to do is to point out that there is more to them than they believe. The only truth is that we are all one infinite consciousness, all knowing, all wise, all loving. Everything else is the imagination of that consciousness made manifest. Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. What happened to me was this found me. I didn't go looking for it. I was a television presenter, minded my own business, not very happy with life, never really been comfortable here, always questioned, always thought, there's something not right, even as a kid, something not right about this place. I had a series of amazing experiences, psychic experiences, amazing spiritual experience on a mound in Peru in the middle of nowhere when this energy just went straight through the top of my head and out through my feet and the other way, and my arms came out about 45 minutes to an hour or more, just shaking with this energy coming through me. And when it was over, I was never the same person. I came back to England and whatever had hit me had just blown away all the dams and stuff. And my mind and everything was thrashing around. I had information coming in. I felt like a computer that had too many of the keys tapped at once, and it was freezing out. It's just so much information and insight to cope with. And that's when I went on live television in Britain and was ridiculed, and all the tabloid newspapers and all that stuff, Icke and Nutter and all that stuff. And I was in a state of absolute confusion. I knew things, I didn't know why I knew them, and I didn't know how to process them or what to do with them. And then everything settled down after about 3 months. And I was the same basic person I was before. As people had a beer with me or something. But I saw the world in a completely different way. And I didn't then, go into a cross-legged position and meditate on the meaning of life. I experienced very, very graphically how the stress of life and the pressures of this reality keep us from the silence, because I was in such personal turmoil in my own life and things that were going on around me, and I couldn't walk down any street without being ridiculed, literally in Britain, anywhere. And I'd turn on the television and a comedian only had to say my name to get a laugh and all that stuff. I wasn't going into any silence. I was in kind of turmoil. And all I did was follow my intuition, just follow what I passionately, where I believed I had to go. It was only more recently that I've started going into the silence knowingly. Before that, I was following an intuitive knowing, but it was like in the emotional and mental turmoil of this reality. Now I've just started to go outside of that and really go into the silent place and find greater levels of insight. And it is changing the way I write, and it's changing what I'm writing about. And it's been like a progression, if you like. But even within the enormous turmoil I went through, it's still possible to hear the voice and go with it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a voice that you hear, but it's a knowing, it's an intuitive knowing. And if I could say this, that's our natural state. What we are held in this reality is an unnatural state, artificially imposed. And I would use this analogy. If you get a tennis ball and you put it on a tank of water, its natural state is to float on the top. If you want to hold it on the bottom, you have to literally push it down, and then you have to hold it. The moment you let go, zoom, it's back to its natural state. And that is symbolically is the situation we're in. It's not that we have to get anywhere. We're already there. We've just forgotten. It's not about getting anywhere. It's not about evolving to God. It's about removing the barriers that have been thrown up to disconnect us in terms of understanding that who we are. We are the ocean, but we've been manipulated to believe we're a droplet, an individual droplet. And if you take a droplet of water, which you can hold in your hand, and then you drop it in the ocean, where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The droplet is the ocean is the droplet. That's our natural state. We are everything, and everything is us. We, in this reality, have been manipulated to believe, again, we keep coming back to belief, what you believe is what you manifest, to believe that we are just droplets, if you like. We are individuals, disconnected and unconnected from everything else. Now, what needs to happen for us to manifest our true infinite nature is that belief system, which is holding us in that reality, needs to be removed. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to climb up some spiritual ladder. We just have to remove the barriers, mental and emotional, that are holding us in this delusory disconnection, because we're not disconnected, we're just disconnected by belief, not reality. And so this is why I say to people, a lot of them in the New Age and stuff, it's not a case of the conspiracy or the spiritual. The two need to go hand in hand. And, you know, a lot of people in the New Age, they don't want to go into the negative. They think it's wrong. Oh, negative. Oh, can't go there. Oh, that's bad. Oh, shut up. Oh, you're just creating negative vibes. Well, okay. Well, you go and do your spiritual stuff, okay? And do you think this is going to change? No. And, you know, how can you get out of a prison if you don't realize you're in one? The greatest form of control is control that you can't see, touch, or taste. If you're in a prison cell and there's bars all around you, you know what the game is. You're in a prison, and then you can start saying, okay, well, how do I get free of this? But if you're sitting in a prison without the bars, then you're not going to make any effort to free yourself, because you don't think you're not free in the first place. So what I'm saying is explaining to people how they're manipulated, to what end, and the methods being used is fundamental to them realizing that there's something that needs to be addressed. And another thing that I find in terms of the spiritual and the conspiracy is, you know, I know from my own correspondence over the years that enormous numbers of people around the world have come to this spiritual understanding of being the oneness, the silence between the thoughts, the infinite, having entered it through the conspiracy. Because one of the great things that a lot of people say, and it's understandable, is, okay, mate, if all this stuff is true, why don't we know about it? And when you explain why they don't know about it and the methods used to stop them and why it's vital to control for them not to know about it, then they start to go, well, hold on a minute. First of all, I can see why I've not heard about this before now. Things start to open up, and they start to move vast distances in terms of their perception of possibility, having come into this whole thing by, you know, investigating or reading about the banking manipulation or political manipulation. So, you know, the so-called spiritual is not just about, you know, carrying on in a holding pattern above the airport, saying I'm above all this. The spiritual is also about getting in there, landing the plane, and infusing that energy into places you'd rather not be. Because unless the two go in hand, then this is not going to be unraveled in anything like as effectively as it will be if we address it. You know, I find, to be honest, that spirituality is too often used as a means of escape instead of a means of change. Just my view.
Right. Do you ever offer people, do you tell people how they can change things for themselves?
Not really, except in concept, because we have to find our own truth and not take someone else's off the peg. So anyway, when people say to me, what do you think I should do? The only one that knows what they should do is them. It's within them. All I'm trying to do is to point out that there is more to them than they believed. And I know, you know, a lot of it comes from my own experience, because you know, I'm not writing these books and stuff and sitting cross-legged on a mountain saying, hey, you know, I've arrived, my children. I've been through enormous mental and emotional challenges and traumatic situations, and I've learned from that experience. So I would put it another way: I have remembered thanks to that experience, because I already knew. We all already know. And from my experience, anyway, it's the point from which you observe this reality that decides how you experience it and how you perceive it. It's an obvious thing. So if you are in this world and of it, shall we say, you identify who you are with the physical body. I am David Icke, born in Leicester, and all this stuff. You identify who you are with your emotions and your thoughts, what we call our personality. Then we're identifying with, in effect, a computer program, a biological computer program. We're in this world and we are of it. When you start to connect with that silence between the thoughts, between the emotions, what I call the silent place, what people like Credo Mutwa, my great shaman friend in South Africa, calls the silent cave. You go to a level not of thought and not of emotion, but of knowing, of intuitive knowing, because you're accessing a level of consciousness that is beyond this illusory, chaotic reality we have created. And if you can observe the world here, from there, from that perspective, then you are in the world physically, but you're not of it in terms of how you're perceiving it. And of course, people who are observing this world from symbolically outside, their perceptions, therefore their behavior, therefore what they say and do, is going to be dramatically different to those that are in the world and of it. And as at this time, although it's changing, the vast majority of people are in the world and of it. They perceive these others as crazy, dangerous, extreme, weirdos, and all these words are used as words that mean another, different. People who are different stand out in our society because so few are outside of the norms. I saw this wonderful car sticker in California once. It said, "You laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at you because you're all the same." And unfortunately, there's so many people who are within a blueprint which has been sold to them, imposed upon them, implanted in them through life, that it says something about our society that those that are different stand out so much. In a society in which we expressed our uniqueness, in which we came from that silence of all possibility and expressed all possibility, people who were different would be the norm, not the exception. And if we can just go into that place and live our lives from that place, then our lives change dramatically, our perceptions change dramatically. We don't have to be told by someone else, what do you think I should do? Well, I think you should know. We know what we should do because we're connected at that level that knows. So that connection is the important thing, not, sitting on a mountain telling people what they should think. I mean, that would just be the old way, the old system.
So you may feel that you've done this, but for somebody that doesn't know anything at all about David Icke, then how would you encapsulate or put everything that you want to get across to people, everything, a huge amount of stuff that you're trying to get across to people in this message, how would you succinctly just summarize that in maybe one sentence? How would you describe that? Say, that's what I'm trying to say.
Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. To add a bit of meat to that, the only truth is that we are all one infinite consciousness, all knowing, all wise, all loving. Everything else is the imagination of that consciousness made manifest. And sometimes, and I would suggest that's what's happened here, the imagination forgets that it is the imagined and believes that what it's imagined is real. The dream and the dreamer are the same, but when the dreamer forgets it's the dream controls the dreamer. And that's what I think has happened here. We have lost touch in conscious and subconscious levels. In this reality, we've lost the memory of who we are, infinite oneness, the infinite all. And what we have imagined into manifestation has taken control of us, because we forgot that we are creating it and we're the masters of it. And we have created the demons. We've created that which we don't like. We've created that which manipulates us, because we've lost touch with who we are. Once you realize that we are infinite oneness and all this is just an imagined delusion, then we can dream another dream. But the dream has got us so mesmerized, so deluded in the belief that it's real, that we don't believe that we can dream another dream. We are stuck with this one. I find it interesting that people have no problem with waking up in the morning and saying, I had a dream last night. It was in color. And people dream in 3 dimensions and all that stuff. And the only difference between that dream and this one is we think this is real. Well, we accept that was a dream. So we can fall over at the edge of a cliff in a dream and wake up alive. We fall over the edge of a cliff in this dream and we end up dead. Why? Because our reality is that when you fall over the edge of a cliff in this real world, I live in the real world, mate, you die, so you die. In a dream, it's just a dream. Therefore, I don't die. And yet the two are the same. Illusions only control us when we think they're real. And this illusion controls us because we think it's real. And that's not a condemnation of anyone, because we are bombarded throughout our lives here to believe that it's real. And if you do that at the same time as suppressing as much as possible all information that suggests it's not real, there's a good chance you're going to go from cradle to grave believing it is. And that's what it's a mind game. It's about the control of human belief, therefore the control of human experience, because one creates the other. And these manipulators who they're not the George Bushes and the Tony Blairs, they're just front place men to do what they're told. We're talking about shadowy groups that you never see, that have held on to this knowledge, passing it on through the highest levels of their secret society network. So they hold the knowledge of how we create reality, etc., and what the nature of reality is. And they use that knowledge to implant our reality, therefore implant our experience. And if we're going to break free, then we need to come to our own truth, to manifest our own uniqueness, and not have some external reality and belief in possibility implanted upon us. Because if we do that, we're letting these external forces create our experience. Because you look all around you and you see people's perception, belief in what is real will create their physical experience. It's the old story of some people see the glass half full, some people see the glass half empty. The difference in the lives those two perceptions experience is dramatically different. And it's interesting. I've seen some film in the last few months, some animated graphics, just showing how when someone comes to a certain rigid belief, even the connections in the brain fuse in a certain network of communication. And what that is, it becomes a filter. So someone who is depressed, believes the world's against them and everything goes wrong for them. Whereas information and experience comes in, it goes through that filter, and what could be something nice becomes something unpleasant because the filter makes it conform to the belief that life is horrible and the world's against me and nothing ever goes right for me. You know, I see this in people, and indeed I see it myself all the time, where the preconceived belief manifests the physical experience. And something else that I've understood about this too is when we feel emotion, again, it's the circle. You can go one way or you can go another. You can put chemicals in the body which affect people emotionally, makes them depressed, for instance. There was a woman in the paper a few months ago who had been in acute depression for 40 years until she realized what was causing it, and that was mercury amalgam fillings. She had all the fillings taken out, she had a mercury detox, and her depression disappeared because the chemicals were affecting the DNA, which is where the emotions really lie, because we're not emotional in the silence in the way that we are here. And therefore is making it depressed, but it goes the other way. When we feel emotion, we produce chemicals. And the receptors in the cells that receive those chemicals are the same receptors that receive heroin and cocaine or any other kind of drug. And it's very clear to me that much of humanity is suffering from what I call emotional addiction. And I see this so much in people. Some people close to me, I see it very clearly. What happens is that people get addicted to the chemical produced by certain emotions. It might be depression. It might be that chemical that's produced in the first flush of a relationship. And what you see with people addicted to that is they'll jump partners all the time. What's that song? Addicted to Love. Because they're addicted to that chemical produced by that initial emotion at the start of, oh, he's so lovely and I'm falling in love with him. Oh, yeah. And people are subconsciously structuring their lives and experience to produce the chemical, the emotion that produces the chemical they're addicted to. There's someone in my family, not my immediate family, but a bit way out, who is very clearly addicted to the chemical produced by depression. And no matter what happens in this person's life, they will perceive it as a unpleasant, oh, here we go again, nothing ever goes right for me experience. Because, you know, and funnily enough, this person actually has this saying about people. She says about people, it's being so miserable it keeps them going. And yet that's exactly what this person does, what she does. So once you get in these belief states and these emotional states, chemically and neurologically, we lock in to a structure which just perpetuates that state. Because interestingly, once you change your emotional state, all these connections that represented the old ones snap out and reconnect to reflect the new change. Now you've got a new filter which is going to filter reality in a different way. So suddenly, the glass is always half empty. Now suddenly it's half full. And what we are manipulated to do all the time through all the bombardment of chemicals and media and so-called information is operate on a tiny, tiny fraction of our potential. Because once we start opening up to a greater potential, the ball is floating on top of the tank again, and we're in our natural state of oneness. And ironically, if you look at this from a bigger picture, we are both the ball on the tank, and we are the hand holding the ball on the bottom. It's funny when you see that we're doing this to ourselves while we perceive that some other force is doing it to us.
I mean, infinite love to me, having been brought up as a church boy, I say, well, you talk about God.
When I talk about infinite love, I'm talking about that place of silence, which is the all-knowing infinite all, in awareness of itself. And that's the difference. In this confused, chaotic, ignorant reality, we are still the infinite all, but we're not aware of it.
For the only time I'm going to stop you, because I know what you're getting at.
See, we confuse who we are with the physical body and the personality that we think we are, the thoughts and the emotions we have. That is only one level of us that we're experiencing at this time. Who we really are is, as someone brilliantly put it, we are not our thoughts with a silence between them, and we're not our emotions with a silence between them. And when people go into meditation and stuff like that, or just daydream, like I do, you go into a place which is silent. There are no words, there are no emotions, there's just a place of peace, of knowing, of intuitive knowing, where you get terrific insights you can't even put words to, you just know. That place of silence is where we connect to the level of who we really are beyond this illusion. Because if you roll back the body, you roll back the emotions, and you roll back the chatterbox thoughts that never shut up, what you're left with is the silence. And the silence is not something that you can even put words to. It just is. It's isness. It's not, people put words to things like God and all that stuff. This is the force with no name. It just is. And only when you go there can you understand what I'm talking about. Because human language is so limited in its ability to describe things that in the realm of human language have not been accepted to exist. And if you sit quietly and you don't try to stop thinking, because the moment you try to stop thinking, you start thinking about not thinking. You just sit quietly and just be. What you can get to is a state where you pull back from your thoughts and your emotions. Instead of being them, which is not what we are, but we're kidded into thinking we are, that's who we are. You observe them, and they pass by like it's almost like listening to a radio station. And you can observe and hear your own thoughts passing by, or what you think of your own thoughts, and your emotions and stuff like that. And you can reach a point where you realize you are observing what you thought was you, but isn't. That which is observing the thoughts and emotions is you. The thoughts and emotions are a computer program. It's not a coincidence that psychologists say that they can break down all human personalities into about 12 archetypes and combinations of them. Every human personality breaks down into these archetypes. Well, the silence is all possibility. It doesn't do archetypes. So how can they break down human personalities into a small number of basically computer programmed archetypes? Because that's what they are assessing. They're assessing a computer program, a biological computer program. They're not accessing and studying the silence, where they'd find that there are no archetypes and all archetypes, all possibility. And it's when you get into the silence, when you get into the infinite love, infinite knowing, infinite wisdom, you realize that you are not a polarity and another polarity. You are the fusion of all. So when people, if in that state, when I'm in that state, say to me, "Who are you?" I would say, "I'm everything and I'm nothing. I am and I'm not. I'm everywhere and I'm nowhere. Because I am all possibility. Therefore, there is nothing that I am not." And it's interesting that they have this thing in physics called matter and antimatter, two polarities, if you like. And when they collide with each other, they annihilate each other and become pure energy. By encompassing the polarities, by not saying, "I'm good and you're bad, I'm good and you're evil, I'm left and you're right," but by saying, I'm good and I'm evil, I'm right and I'm left, I'm negative and I'm positive, and I'm all in between. That, I find, that state of consciousness has the same effect as the matter and antimatter. By encompassing the polarities and accepting them, you annihilate them into pure energy, the one, the infinite, the all-knowing. And society is structured for us to identify with a polarity. Because when I've been in these states of silence beyond the thoughts, I have known that the world of illusion is the world of vibration. The world of silence, the infinite silence, is the place of stillness. The reason the illusion is the world of vibration is for something to vibrate, it needs 2 points between which it can oscillate. Frequency, vibration. This is the world of duality, the world of polarity. Therefore, all around us, there are polarities between which vibrations are oscillating. That's why it's the world of vibration. It's interesting that when you look at extremes in society, like the far left and the far right, fascism, communism, when you look at that, take the names away, the way they behave and their instincts and their behavior and the way they go about things is precisely the same. Why? They're two polarities, but they're the same vibration going between them. Therefore, they are two expressions of the same vibration. This is why the difference between communism and fascism is the name. And when you get into the silence, you get into stillness. That's why we talk about the silence and the stillness of the heart and the stillness and silence of meditation. It's because you're going to the place of oneness. And it may seem obvious, but oneness only comes in units of one. There are no two onenesses between which anything can vibrate and oscillate. It can only be still, because it is the unity of all. And that's who we are. And that's what the system is designed to keep from us. Because when you're there, manipulating you and telling you what to think and who you are and what to be is an impossibility. Because all-knowingness does not do control, and certainly doesn't concede to it.